My name is Jerotich Seii. I'm a Kenyan woman, somebody who believes in standing up and speaking out when things are not working well for the ordinary citizen. I do have a partner, married in that regard. I have actually a total of 6 children, 3 being mine biologically, but we have 6 children in total, and mine are 3 boys. I have an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 3-year-old. You know, my family is very important to me, and if I start even moving outside my immediate nuclear family, as in my partner and my children, I go back to my family of origin. I think I am, and I know I am who I am today because of the way I was raised, because of my parents. My mother and father specifically have been extremely instrumental in my life in terms of encouraging me to go for it. I'm one of 5 siblings, 5 children that my parents have, and I remember that growing up, mediocrity was never an option. I rose in the ranks professionally, and eventually found myself, when I left the UN system, as chief of mission or head of a country program. And then I moved back to Kenya, and that's where I now work for an international organization, and then eventually made the decision to go freelance and work for myself. I felt after a while that the idea of being a member of civil society or being an activist in civil society had lost some of the strength that it used to have, because I think, especially in the 2000s, there was a lot of co-opting of members of civil society into government and other positions, and eventually the potency of this term activist was lost, diluted, transformed. And so over time, as I have seen things that are going wrong in my country, Kenya, around issues of energy and energy justice, or the abuse attack, attempt to destroy the constitution of Kenya, I said, I'm not an activist. I am an activist, but let me define myself in a way that better reflects how I feel. So I said, I'm a citizen who is active. I believe that as Kenyans, we deserve more, we deserve better. And we have an excellent constitution, we have rule of law that exists. What we fail to do as the people of the Republic of this great country, Kenya, is to stand up and speak up consistently and continuously when things go wrong. So things that annoy me, things that irritate me, things like the price of electricity, actually that is what really brought me out in terms of my active citizenship with the Switch Off KPLC campaign, saying for how long are we going to be burdened under the heavy yoke of electricity bills, as if electricity is a privilege. Electricity is a right. We need it for the development of this country, of our region. I can grumble to you, or grumble to my neighbor, or grumble to my partner, or shout at my children to switch off lights and so on and so forth, or I can shout in public. And very importantly, not just making noise, so to speak, on social media, but also going to the court of law, to seek redress and to seek justice there. Well, the grievances I still have against Kenya Power is the overbilling and fraudulent billing of electricity consumers. In fact, what caught our attention when we started the Switch Off KPLC campaign in early 2018 is the fact, and admitted by the Ministry of Energy, by Kenya Power and Lighting, by the Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority, they admitted that electricity consumers had been overbilled to the tune of 10.1 billion Kenya shillings. But 10.1 billion shillings is but the tip of the iceberg of the overbilling, extortion, mismanagement of the electricity consumer within the de facto, or by the de facto energy distributor, which is Kenya Power and Lighting. So we said enough is enough. And we gathered as many electricity bills as we could, set up a Gmail account and said anybody who has an issue, anyone who is overbilled, whether you have a prepaid or a postpaid account, come out, speak to it, speak about it, tell us your stories, because we are going to court. And there was born Petition 6 of 2018. Almost 4 years on, we're still in court. We've moved from the High Court and we have now moved to the Court of Appeal. The government does not respect activists and active citizens because they see that we are speaking to things that they're actively involved in, whether it is theft, whether it is mismanagement or undermanagement. Now, that is the group that will not respect us. And the lack of respect is manifested through the ignoring of court orders, for example, through ignoring of our voices when we say we need to come to the table. When there are task forces, we are never called to those task forces. The public is never consulted. So it's not even about activists. It's, for me, a wider contempt. When you look at Pandora Papers, for example, our president, President Uhuru Kenyatta, was adversely mentioned. He was abroad, I think, on official business, said that he would address the issue of the Pandora Papers upon his return to Kenya. How long ago was that? Several weeks. The president has failed to address the issue of his role in Pandora Papers. That, for me, is a clear demonstration and indication of his contempt for the people who he was elected to serve. And if you have a head of state who disrespects the people who he has promised to serve, then of course his executive will disrespect the people. Of course the legislature will ignore us and say, well, whatever, election cycle will come again, they'll vote for us again. So I think because the fish has thoroughly rotted from the head, you will not have a situation where activist voices are fully, truly and clearly respected. So it goes back to leadership. It goes back to who have we elected, who do we have in power, who has committed to serve us, and what are we doing as citizens when those who commit to serve us stop serving us. Group of us just decided to sit together and brainstorm around what was happening with the BBI fraud, the Building Bridges Initiative, that was threatening to literally repeal the Constitution of Kenya. We said, why don't we come up with something that counters the narrative that our Constitution is bad and requires not just some small tweaks here and there, but an entire revisit, an entire repeal, so that we can come up with something new. So Linda Katiba was again a committed group of active citizens. Some are politicians, some are academics, some are activists, some are professionals in the NGO space, and so on and so forth. Very fortunately, we did win, as the wider collective of Linda Katiba, the court cases that the petitions that we lodged to find out more about this BBI fraud and whether it was really something that was legally acceptable within the framework of the Constitution. And you don't see that much of us anymore at the moment, but we're there. We haven't disappeared. We continue to do what we do. I do switch off KPLC. Linda Katiba is always in my mind. My father, the retired Major John Seii, was a member of the Building Bridges Initiative Task Force. And from the very beginning, when we learned, along with all other Kenyans, I think he also learned at the same time, because it wasn't something that he was told, tomorrow there'll be such and such an announcement, but they said, you're a member of the task force. I disagreed with him. And this speaks to how I told you I was raised, how I shared earlier I was raised. We were raised to speak our minds. And I say, Dad, this is not a task force that is taking us anywhere good. This is a task force that is setting the stage for the repeal and destruction of the Constitution of Kenya. And respectfully, my father disagreed. And we come from the type of family that allows us to disagree without disrespecting each other, without fighting, without having family feuds. So we would have very robust debates on a regular basis. He says, oh, we've just come back from, and he'd mention the county, Marsabit or Turkana or Taita Taveta. We'd have conversations, because I called my father to see, how are you doing today? I said, this BBI business, no. And as a result of our continuous conversation, I think my father, it came to a point when he realized that actually the work that the task force was doing was setting the stage for the drafting of a completely separate document called the Amendment Bill, the Constitution Amendment Bill. And that is when my father told me, you're right. This has actually been all along a ploy to set the stage for the repeal of the Constitution. We have people who lost their lives in the second liberation, people who spent the 80s in detention, who fought for multi-party democracy in Kenya, who fought to see the birth of this new constitution. And I'm glad that I'm a part of the movement that fought tooth and nail in public, social media, and also in the court of law to defend the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. I think when it comes to women in leadership in Kenya, we don't have a shortage of competent, qualified women. Whether it's somebody who wants to run at the MCA level or parliamentary level or senatorial level or as governor, we have many women. I think what is more pervasive is societal attitudes around women in leadership. So when you see a woman in leadership doing something, and if you go down, if you're on social media and read the comments, the first or second or third person will be saying, you see what happens when you put women in positions of leadership, they can't lead, they're not. So it's more an attitude that should women really be leading? And if you're a woman who is leading, what type of woman does it make you? Maybe divorced, maybe a single mom, maybe unmarried, maybe without children. So trying to create a box that women get thrown into when they say they aspire to positions of leadership. And look at the late great Professor Wangari Maathai, Nobel Prize, world renowned, recognized, respected, loved, revered. What position did she hold here in Kenya? Wasn't she assistant minister? She was given assistant minister, was it environment? Imagine. So sometimes, even as women in leadership, you may have achieved and accomplished so much globally, but you come back to your home and you're still put in a box. So the late great Professor Wangari Maathai was put in a box and given her sub docket there and told, your assistant minister environment. Imagine if she was minister environment. Imagine what couldn't we have seen happen in this country of Kenya. I have been abused roundly on social media, and by usually nameless, faceless trolls who will tell you something that is not really about the issues you raise, but about you and your person, and or say, you should go home. Somebody even threatened to genitally mutilate me. I should be circumcised. But that is nothing compared, not that it's right, compared to some of the trolling that other female activists and active citizens have faced over the years. I have never, and honestly, I have never been harassed. Am I saying that risks are not there? Am I saying everybody should roam into activism eyes wide open and think that nothing will happen? We have a lot of extrajudicial killing. We have harassment that has happened. We've had the physical attack of activists. So I'm not painting a rosy picture. But in my particular instance so far, besides attacks via social media, I have stayed safe. And if I can stay safe, I hope that there are many others too who can stay safe. You may not see me on the streets marching every day, but we have marched, and I believe being on the streets is a very powerful tool. It's part of activism, it's part of active citizenship, where we manifest physically our disappointment and disapproval of things that are going wrong. I have also chosen to mix that with my social media activism. They call us keyboard warriors. They thought it was an insult. I say, thank you very much. That's the highest compliment I could ever receive. Do I worry about my family? Yes. Do I worry that if something happened to me, that I would leave my children without a mother? Yes. And that is something that anybody who puts themselves out there should worry about. A belief for me overall in the Almighty, in justice, in truth, and equality for all people, of all people. And that is why I fight. So it's a combination, And if you hear, God forbid, you know, a few weeks down the road, Jerotich has had to flee, or I have been picked up, then I would just take it in stride and say, this is part of the risk that you undertake when you put yourself out there and say that you're going to fight for the rights of all people. I will continue to speak, and I will be ever more loud, because I was not raised to have a spirit of fear. I was raised to be bold, to be forthright, and to always speak the truth.